Well, welcome. Regular meeting of the village councils, regular meeting of the Village Council of Corrales. Like to call it to order and also please turn off your phones or put them on vibrate so they don't disturb any discussion later on in the meeting. Once you've done that, please stand and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you very much. Councilor Miera. Here. Councilor Woolman.
Here.
Councilor Knight.
Here.
Councilor Alsabrook.
I am present.
Oh, good. Councilor Burkett.
Here.
Councilor Murray.
I'm here.
We're all here tonight. That's so good. Yeah. Okay, I need a motion to approve the agenda, please.
So moved.
Okay, I have a motion to approve. Do I have a second? And I have a second from Councilor Knight. All those in favor signify by saying aye, please.
Aye.
Hey, how are you doing? First on the agenda is a employee recognition, and it appears that the Deputy Fire Chief Tanya Lawton, who has been here for 27 years, is first up. I should have, if Lexi had lived, I would have had her here. It's my dog. I'm sure.
Mayor, council, good evening. So, as you mentioned, Mayor, tonight we're celebrating Tanya, Deputy Chief Tanya Lawton, for 27 years serving this community, the Village of Corrales, and also her promotion to Deputy Chief of Emergency Management and EMS. So the first thing I want to say is it's my fault. We were here in this fire station, and I was the only paid firefighter here. And as you know, the rest was all volunteers, which we still are right now. We just have more paid. And we needed volunteers, and I found an application that had fallen behind the desk, full of dust, spider webs. I grabbed it and I shake it off. I'm like, oh, Tanya Lawton wants to be a volunteer EMT. We gave her a call, and
Here she is.
Here she is. So I take full responsibility.
Thank you.
So a little bit about Tanya. When she came to join the fire department, she only had an interest in EMS. And like we do with all of our volunteers, is we tell them that you have to be a little bit of everything. And those of you that know Tanya, I think she took that to heart and says, fine, I'll learn a little bit about everything, or a lot about a lot. So we brought her in as a volunteer. As you know, she excelled. Our first call, I was in back of the rescue showing her our medical equipment, teaching her how to use the two-way radio, the push to talk. And we have someone fall out of a vehicle right in front of us, and we went right to work. And I knew then that she would be a good asset. Tanya is a EMT paramedic. Tanya's taken the opportunity to go to special training for community paramedic. Something that we've done in this community for years. A lot of people don't realize that, but sometimes when you respond to an EMS call, doesn't always mean they have to go to the hospital. Sometimes it just means that we have to make sure they're taking the right meds. Sometimes it just means that we may have to make them a peanut butter and jelly sandwich because their sugars are low. We've been doing that for years, but Tanya is certified in that. She had an interest in emergency management. She pursued that path and has been successful in that. Coordinating trainings right before pandemic. The time has kind of faded, but maybe 6 months or a year. 2 months, we had a full-blown scale training at the rec center for the point of distribution. So when COVID came along, we were already prepared. We already had a plan and how we're going to distribute the vaccine. I really don't need to talk too much about COVID. She did a fantastic job for this community with COVID, and not just the community, but for the state. And she's also fantastic with the grants. A lot of our equipment we owe to her, well, you, for allowing us to pursue these grants, and her to write them and be successful in receiving those funds. And she also helps out with finance at the Village Hall. I need to give credit to previous administration, Mayor Kaminiak, Administrator John Avila. They recognized her abilities and really wanted to push her to a promotion to a deputy chief, and we were working on the scales and job descriptions. COVID did come along, and the current administration, Mayor Ron, thank you for pursuing that. It was on our things to do, and you made it happen. So we appreciate you and the council and the clerks for accomplishing that. So with that said, Tanya, if you could come up here, we're gonna give you a badge for your promotion, and we also have a plaque. This is Ethan, her son, who's a Albuquerque firefighter. Woo! And you're. You'd like to say a couple words? Keep it short, long meeting.
Just a few words. Thank you, Mayor, Council, Chief Martinez, Sky, Melanie for doing this. I really appreciate it. I've had a lot of people ask, well, my son was telling me I taught a paramedic class at Albuquerque because we put some of our people in that paramedic class. And part of the thing was I had to teach it. And one of the paramedics I taught, my son was at his station on a shift this week. And he said, so is your mom retiring yet? And he said, no. And he said, how long has she been there? 27 years. Why isn't she retired? But I want to thank this community because there are higher paying jobs. There are higher para jobs there, but there is not the community of Corrales. And this community lets us be who we are. It helps us out when we need to feed people. They help neighbors. It's really the community. And I joined here because my mom lived here and I needed to keep my CEs up. And she said, you just had a kid, go do something, get back into the workforce. So it was right up the street. She lived at the group home there where ARCA's at and managed that. So I joined here and I haven't left and I love it. So thank you so much.
For requested to say something about Tanya.
I'm sorry, what?
I would like to speak about Tanya's actions this morning
Oh,
and
okay.
a fire on my property.
Oh, it's on your property.
This morning at 10:58, we received a call from Tanya. I was just walking out of my doctor's appointment. Tanya called and says there's a fire on my property. I said, we will be there in a minute. For the next 10 minutes as I'm driving, Tanya's been on the phone with me. Slow down, Kurt. Slow down. We got it under control. Don't rush. Don't get in an accident. We're like, we have dogs, we have cats in our house. You know, we just want to make sure they're okay. We don't care about everything else. Get to our dogs. My wife is saying, Tanya, or, yelling in this, tell her we got dogs. Tanya's on the phone. Tell Suzanne we have dogs and cats in there. That's all right. They'll be okay. They're safe. I really appreciate the Corrales Fire Department responding to a fire this morning at our property in 60-mile-an-hour winds
Oh, man.
caused by the power lines. And that's another thing I'll speak with tonight of the power lines. We've had a lot of ups and downs with the Corrales departments and stuff like that. But today, the Corrales Fire Department, not just today, it's happened twice on our property where the Corrales Fire Department was there when we needed. And they were there and accessed our property. I'm just going to throw this out there with a 20-foot road easement. with no problem.
Can't be, would be on.
Thank you.
Okay. Next, Nicholas Molinari. Nick.
Oh, it just keeps getting better, huh?
So some of you may recognize Nick. I don't bring him to meetings and stuff, but tonight we're gonna celebrate his 20 years with the fire department and promotion as a deputy chief of operations. Again, Mayor, Mr. Curry, council, thank you for allowing me the opportunity to structure my fire department because of our growing needs. I know I come before you asking for budget and personnel, and these are things that I do to try to serve the public. Nick has joined in 2004 as a volunteer. Little story here about, and Nick comes from a line of firefighters. His dad, Joe, who's present here, is a firefighter, was a firefighter. His brother's firefighter. Nick's mom told me, Chief, you take care of my son and you make him an EMT and a firefighter. And I said, yes, ma'am. But, you know, I want to tell mom tonight, it's all him. He did it all on his own. So we hired Nick in April of 2006. Nick has become a firefighter, EMT. Nick was one of the first that we put through training and he was successful. We supported him, we gave him the path and he just ran with it. He's an EMT intermediate. He helps us with special operations, which includes swift water, rope rescue, those types of specialty trainings. You approved him to go down to Florida to inspect our new airboat that we haven't taken possession of yet, but soon. He helps me around the station with trainings and making sure things are functioning. We've sent Nick to California for wildland firefighters. He's a wildland firefighter engine boss. And so tonight, just want to welcome and thank him for his service to this community. Like Chief Latin mentioned, there has been plenty of opportunities for all my staff to move on. And I do my best to try to keep them and retain them because it's a huge investment that we make in them as well, right? The more trainings and stuff, and we want to retain that for our citizens. So I have a badge here for Nick and his wife, Jennifer. We'll be pinning that, and I just need a plaque.
I practiced this before we came.
Or he has a big dressing on his chest where he poked holes in him.
It's it.
Thank you.
Mayor, council, thank you. Thank you for letting me build my career here. I appreciate everything you guys have done for me. And I hope to keep serving. Thank you.
We just want to get a boat ride now.
That's right. As soon as it comes in.
I'm looking, I want to see the ski.
Mayor, council, Mr. Curry, thank you for the opportunity.
Thank you.
Thank you, Anthony. And now we're going to hear from the Corrales Main Street Executive Director, Angela Gutierrez. He's going to give us a brief update.
Counselors, Administrator Curry and staff, thanks for having us tonight and congratulations, guys. And thank you for everything you do. Definitely make it easy to be partners with you guys too. So we appreciate everything. So I'll just kind of start with our quarterly report. That's sort of our purpose tonight, is to be here and answer some questions about a quarterly report that we submit. And it reflects our service contract. That's kind of the logical goal with it, is to sort of report on everything that we have in the service contract and sort of what we're doing and updating those basic kind of deliverables. But then we have a few kind of other updates that we'd like to make. One of the first one I'll start off with is something very exciting for our organization. I think obviously for me as well. We've hired an assistant director, and her name is Jessie Penrod. Many of you may know her just from being in the community and possibly seeing her at some of the Arts and Cultural District events. She was a head potter and manager at Hanselman for quite some time and really, took that situation, that business to a really great level. She's got some really amazing skill sets as well as, being a head potter and ceramicist too. So she and I kind of started at the same time, and she from the get-go has been very involved with First Sunday and just trying to really promote the community aspect of the arts. So excited to have her. If anybody needs anything, she's available too. And so I just want to make that announcement. And as that pertains to Arts and Cultural District, that's kind of the next thing that I'm going to focus on a little bit. She'll be doing a lot of the kind of the work that we're rounding the corner about to get our authorization, I hope in June. And so Jesse's going to be doing a lot of the kind of finalizing work in that regard. And so we do have kind of an active update on our website as well for ACD. If anybody has questions on that, she's working on updating that information too. So we'll do a little presentation on ACD, which will kind of finally segue us into, yes, please, thanks, Guy. Viva Corrales, that is our signature event for the Arts and Cultural District. And so I want to give an opportunity to update that and take any questions as well. So what you're looking at here is kind of a summary from the Arts and Cultural District work that Sandy Rasmussen and Michelle Negretti, who is leading our contractor proposal to finish the cultural plan. And that is really like the last thing that we have to do. And we're really close to finishing that. So, and this will kind of mirror what we've seen with comprehensive planning, meetings, process, similar information. Our information is really directed at the creative economy, which is at the, the root of the Arts and Cultural District authorization. And so a lot of these statistics kind of reflect the work that has been done. So, we have 17 stakeholder meetings. Like I said, again, going to mirror a lot of the comprehensive plan process too. But we came up with just some more specific information really pertaining to that creative economy. So we can kind of scroll through it, and this will be available on the website too, and we're happy to share it at any time if people are more interested in it. But it really does reflect why we went for the ACD authorization to begin with, and how it's going to really, benefit us. So we can kind of scroll through it. I just wanted to present it, let everybody know this information is available. We came up with 5 basically ultimate goals out of this process and what the next steps are to move forward to finish that cultural plan. So the goal with the cultural plan is to have it be an active document, that's useful and not, again, just kind of something that sits around. But this is available, and I just want to share that we have this. And also point to the New Mexico Main Street website again. The reason I say that is it's obviously really interesting, gives a broader education for what Main Street actually does and what we're all about. But there's a section on there that highlights arts and cultural districts, what they do, what they can do, and what ultimately the authorization will do for us. And there's a study, I think finished in December of 23, that has some really good data about, what these creative economies do. And I think it's Santa Fe, Taos, and Bernalillo counties that are reflected on there. So just really want to bring this up again because we're close to this authorization, and I know it's kind of a nebulous concept in some ways, but it's really gonna be a big deal for our creative economy, and those are natural assets that exist here in Corrales. So that's kind of it in terms of what I want to present, make available, let people know that this stuff is here and we're rounding that corner for the authorization and just take any questions.
Bill?
Yeah, a couple of questions if I could, Angela, thank you for.
Yeah,
this presentation.
definitely.
These have to do with New Mexico Main Street updates.
Yeah.
Is there an update on a meeting with the community group on the administrative parking lot? That's, I'll give you both,
Sure.
then maybe.
Yeah.
And the other one is discussion on the master plan for the village center. So if you could maybe
Sure.
address those two.
Yep.
Great.
So the first question that Councilor Waldman's asking about, that goes back to, gosh, 2019, I think, when a service request through New Mexico Main Street was enacted by Corrales Main Street. That was an effort to sort of produce drawings that would sort of show what could be done, right? And that was in 2019. Obviously, things kind of evolved and changed through COVID. Originally, there was a parklet that was planned back there. And a service request is something that we have access to through New Mexico Main Street. And that'll segue us into the second question that you have, but we contracted with Groundwork Studios to create those drawings. Then they were obviously paused for a little while, picked back up, I think in 23. And so they're still in the works, I believe, and being finalized. The service request itself was closed, turned into, I think, an RFP, if that's correct. And so I think Amy Bell and Groundwork Studios would be the people who to best give you an update on where that's at now. But
Because I know apparently there's one meeting scheduled with the community that was canceled by Main Street. And I was just wondering if there are any others that have happened or
well, and
scheduled.
I think what you're asking about and referring to is the citizen group that produced a drawing on their own. So
Right.
the meeting itself, it wasn't exactly canceled, but it was determined to be sort of unnecessary at the time based on the process that I just described. And the reason was those drawings were taken into account and all of that feedback was, I think, utilized in the ways that it was actually able to be implemented. So from a perspective of meeting and just considering everybody's time, we didn't actually end up meeting. But I think, and hopefully the citizens group knows that, what was actually available and was able to be utilized has been, as far as I understand. So
And do you know when we might see results of where we are?
I think it's getting closer to a,
So Mayor and Council, Amy Bell is actually working on that plan right now. I just got an invoice today from her. So they needed to do a survey of the property to take a look at, drainage and all of that. So she is in the process of finalizing some documents. Her next step is she wants to meet with Public Works to see how much of the work can be done in-house by our staff. And then what will need to go out for a bid or to our on-call contractor.
I'm glad that you bring it up because the service requests are very valuable. And that's an important thing that Main Street has access to. And that's, we're actively engaged in a number of them right now. And so, the impetus for this was a service request. And that's something that, keep in mind. And we have a bunch of different ways to utilize those service requests. So it's a good thing to talk about often.
Thank you.
Yeah. And
Yes, Counselor Mier.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. On that same note, we brought up earlier that we had acquired a lot of new properties. And so we had a motion to move on how we could utilize those properties collectively as opposed to doing something for one property at a time. You're familiar with that. And I believe that was given to you all to work on. And I'd just like to have an update on that one, how we're doing that, because now more than ever, I think people are asking that question. It's really a good question as to exactly we're buying the properties and maybe even thinking about buying more, but how do we make those work together? I think that's a very important part of what it is we need to respond back to the citizenry. So can you give us a little update on how that's coming along and where your goals are?
sure, definitely. And again, this is another service request, right? And so this is a joint effort between Rhea Cerna, and she is a property management and inventory specialist through New Mexico Main Street. And then Groundwork Studios from a landscape architect perspective, taking into account all of these different properties. And I think it was January 25th. We had a fairly extensive meeting and walkthrough and discussed all of what's available right now in terms of the inventory of properties. And Ray is actively working on it. The Wells Fargo building, I think, is also in the potential mix there if it ends up, being available. So we are working on it, and I think we can give probably a written update. Rhea had a couple questions this week, but yes, certainly that's happening. I think it's like I said, when we first talked about it, it's a great first step, right? To trying to answer these questions and get that overall survey of what could possibly these pieces be used for. So, yeah.
Well, you're welcome to come back and keep us updated at any time.
Definitely, I appreciate it, because like I said, I think we can't talk about the service requests enough, because they're very valuable.
Councilor Murray.
Oh, thank you, Mayor. So yeah, in your quarterly report, you had a slide that talked about me, this is going to be back on, Councilor Waldman's comments as well, that you met and coordinated with the citizen group providing input. I'm not exactly happy with your comment about that you found the meeting unnecessary, because I think you dismiss our residents' abilities to provide input to you.
Yeah.
And I'm just not happy that we haven't had that meeting, or you haven't had that meeting with our citizens who are adequately professional, basically, because they are professional architects. I want to see something come out of that, because one of the things that this council said, meet with them and coordinate and make sure that you get the input that you need. By not having that meeting, I know they gave you their input in the form of a packet, but discussions are really good between people. And I think it just makes me unhappy that you didn't have the meeting.
Okay.
And we have residents who are adequately trained,
Mhm.
but we need to use the resources, and you're not doing that when you dismiss meetings and you say, well, we didn't think it was necessary. I'm just not comfortable with that conversation.
Sure. Well, I think possibly, and I'm not sure, obviously you and I could talk a little bit more, but I think you're misunderstanding the way I'm saying it. And the reason that I'm saying I didn't deem it unnecessary, Main Street didn't deem it unnecessary. But to your point, because these are professionally trained people and have a lot of experience, if meeting isn't going to accomplish the next step, I respect their time so much. I'm not going to ask them to say, come and have a meeting if we can't move to the next step. And so I'm sure well, when it comes down to village properties and things like that, there's a step in between there that's sort of out of Main Street's control, if that makes sense.
Well, it doesn't, because they're willing to meet and they're willing to donate their time.
Sure.
But meetings, I mean, yes, we have a lot of meetings, and a lot of times, not a lot comes out of them.
Yeah.
But these professionals, I think, had ideas that I think I wanted to have pursued, and they weren't. And I just don't know where it's at right now in the plan, but
Yeah.
by dismissing or not meeting with them, I think you've done a disservice.
Well, and I think dismiss is not the right word. We certainly didn't dismiss them.
We did not dismiss them.
Yeah, and I feel like
We
I would,
felt that we had excuse me, let me just respond. We had their input. We considered including their input. We told Amy Bell, use these things, and we listed a few of those that we thought were reasonable for a parking lot. And that's where it is right
Well,
now.
Mayor, I don't agree with that.
Well, that's
you make a
okay.
decision
You
like
can
that.
disagree with me.
It's
That's
a-
all right.
it's
I
a
disagree with
decision
you
that
sometimes
make on the
also.
fly, and it's contrary to what the council said. Work with these folks. It's that kind of thing. It kind of
Thank
makes me unhappy.
Thank you.
well, I'm happy to check in with Fred and pass on the correspondence that we had via email. I don't know if you were privy to that, but certainly I think dismiss is not a word that I would ever want people to think that
That
we
might
did.
be a poor choice of words, but that's what came out of my mouth.
No worries. I just want to make sure that you understand I don't have a dismissive attitude. I'm happy to talk to anybody like anytime. But on the flip side, I also do respect their time enough that I'm not going to say that.
I think that's immaterial. They're willing to donate their time. So I don't think that you can consider that as a excuse not to have the meeting.
Sure. Well, and it's not an excuse, but I think that was the reason, and I'm happy to talk to them anytime. And you also, if
Thank you.
there's a way we can meet.
Okay, thank you. What
Thanks,
about
guys.
the old church parking lot? Where are we on
So
that?
yep, that's actually finished as well. I think I think we were close to picking the CHS was picking the most desirable
Okay.
offering. There were 6 different drawings.
Was it
But
45 parking places or something?
Yeah.
It's really sad.
it's tough. Parking's always
Yeah.
an issue. So,
Okay,
all right.
thank you very
Thank you
much.
all. And like I said, I'm always accessible if there are questions that develop after tonight. So.
Okay, so now we'll move on to Mr. Curry's administrative report.
Well, I was gonna ask Tanya to give an update on,
Something's happened. They're working.
Yeah, they had a couple of, the wind is awful, guys.
It reminded me of in high
Watch your
school.
properties.
When
Watch
we
your
wanted to leave
properties.
someone's house in high school, we used to have somebody call us and tell us there was an emergency. I felt like they didn't want to participate in the rest of the meeting.
They all left.
So
Yeah. My beeper would occasionally go off like that too.
so in lieu of Tanya, I'll ask Melanie to give just 2 quick updates on IPRAs and the animal services.
Sure. Mayor, council, we've had, it's now 59 IPRAs. I had 2 more come in after the staff meeting this morning, just for this year. So we are averaging about 1 a day, but they don't come in as 1 a day. So we had 6 come in today alone. So they tend to come in groups. But we have started utilizing the police clerk, Charlotte Blazon. She's been an amazing help to our office. So any requests that come in for a police report, she now has the software to redact those. She's been trained on how to properly redact those reports. And it turns out she was listed as a records custodian in our resolution for records custodian all along. So having her be able to take up some of that slack and then she can email those directly to the requester has eliminated the step of it coming to me sending it to her sending it back to me, and then me redacting it and then sending it out to the person. So it's really cut down on the time. And the majority of our IPRAs, we are able to turn around and answer the same day.
Wow,
So
really? Good.
were there some questions?
Yes, Counselor Woolman.
Yes, thank you, Mayor. There was an article in the Journal the other day about HIPAA requests and the increase, and it implied that they were coming perhaps from a political group. Are you seeing patterns like that? Or is it more the, as you said in the past, about police investigations, those kinds of things?
We typically only have one sort of frequent flyer requester. We have an investigator from Albuquerque that does send in a request about every 2 weeks. Every once in a while, he'll send in a request once a week, but he wants all of the accident reports for the requested time period. Other than that, it's the majority of them are just residents that need an accident report to file with their insurance. So, it's not been too bad.
Great, thank you.
So, yeah. And then as far as the animal services building goes, we have the building permits. So work has resumed. They have started working on the interior, and I believe we had a plumber out this week. I haven't seen the update from facility build for this week, but I heard there was a plumber out yesterday doing some work on the interior. So we are back in business, and it still looks like we are on track to open at the end of April for the animal services building.
Yeah, oh, yes, Bill.
Yes, Mayor, if I could, thank you. Ron, I appreciate that the work has resumed, and hopefully there won't be any more glitches, and the state will comply and those kind of things. But given that, what is the plan for housing cats? That building cannot house cats. They will be left in, for now, the concrete cell blocks and things. Is there for another facility?
Well, it's not another facility, but we're going to modify the existing facility so that they can house the cats. Because they were tearing out so much of the inside, we suggested, well, tear this out too, because we've been told that this is not adequate for the cats.
Right.
And they'll put in, what do you call them, hotels or something, cat hotels? Apartments, whatever, to give them some room.
Speaking of the condos that
Yeah, it's a
Department
cat condo.
contributed,
Your lady just walked in.
but
They
no,
won't be crammed into those little cages. That'll be gone.
okay, but they won't be able to free roam.
We're also going to do some work on that, the little
Okay.
patio area to make sure that they can't get through those, the fencing that's there.
There will be some modifications needed, but since we're doing so much modification. Said, well, let's do this. And so, yeah, that's going to be done.
Great. Good. Thank you.
Yeah.
Appreciate
Okay, back on the stage is Tanya.
A question for Tanya. Is everything okay
it. An
out
update,
there?
update. your-
Thank you, Mayor, Council Administrator Curry. Yes, we got encoded for a rollover at
Oh.
the Corrales Council Chambers. We all left, of course, and located a riding lawnmower at La Entrada and Corrales Road. We do have crews out looking to make sure someone didn't really roll that over, but it looks like it may have just fallen off the back of a trailer or truck
Or blown off.
or blown off or blown over. So yes, no injuries, because we were like, we should have heard a car roll over right here, but you never know. Thank you. So today, COVID luckily is on its sixth straight week of downward decline in the United States. We are holding steady at roughly 38 per 100,000 of tested positive cases, and it is 7.2% positivity rate in New Mexico. Hospitalizations are down. They're at 1 per 100,000. I did not look at hospital numbers today. We were really busy. We are still considered, so there's 3 levels of high. There's extreme high, or 3 levels of extreme high. There are 3 different colors. We're still the top, next to the top one for influenza-like illness. So anything, cough, flu, congestion, those kind of illnesses. So we still have a lot of sickness, but I am here, so we're doing a little better. All of our COVID tests do expire at the end of February. So that's really the last I've been able to find of any tests. I do have a meeting tomorrow morning at 6 a.m. ACIP, which is the Immunization Practices Committee for the CDC, is meeting at 6 a.m. tomorrow to start talking about some COVID stuff, new plans for new vaccine for 24, 25, those kind of things. So I will be on that. It looks like they've slotted 4 hours for COVID. I wish they would have pushed it to later if they're going to talk about measles and polio and RSV and a whole bunch of other things. On that, if you're traveling, measles, we're having more measles in more states. So if you're older and didn't have measles, you might want to talk to your doctor and see if they want you immunized for measles. I had to be re-immunized for both polio and measles. My titer was gone at one point in my career. So those are things to think about. And if you're traveling out of the country, cholera is the big one right now in South Africa. Any questions for me? Thank you.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Thank you, Tanya. A couple of updates. I don't know how many of you all respond or read the Best of Albuquerque magazine, but should take a look at the current issue because Corrales is featured in there at least 4 different times. One is for one of the best swimming pools in the Albuquerque area,
The best.
if not the best, which is really a credit to Len and his work because of the fact that they had so many
Summer.
problems with this pool this last year. But to be recognized as one of the best in Albuquerque is a real credit to him and his team over there. The other thing that the growers market was recognized as one of the best, if not the best, within the Albuquerque area. And also the story time at the library was recognized. And then one of the other things that was recognized for those of you who indulge in the adult beverages was ex novo. So we're recognized as within the region for all of our local activities. And so I think it's a real tribute to those who participate in that. And Corrales is a great place to be, as we all know. And other people recognize that as well. So pick up a copy of the Albuquerque magazine and see how not only our departments work here in the village of Corrales, but our businesses as well have recognized.
So you think that Corrales is sort of a regional attraction?
Apparently.
Okay.
And that regional attraction helps to contribute to our businesses and also helps to contribute since they're coming to our businesses and to our facilities, it helps to our gross receipts tax, which helps us all. Christina is here tonight from the court, but I just wanted to give you an update. I gave you an update last month on some December activities as far as speeding tickets. So for the month of January, there were 97 traffic citations issued. And 54 of those were other traffic violations and 43 were for speeding. And there've been 13 arraignments set and 4 arraignments held. Fees assessed from arraignments that have been held have been $116 and penalty assessments have been 26. Fees due to penalty assessments are just short of $2,100. So our police department is at work trying to contain the speeding.
Counselor Knight?
Mayor, I think last month you also broke down how many tickets were given to Coralenos. Do you have that? Because there's been such a push to slow down speeders in Corrales.
Last month it was just around 50, and we haven't got that number yet. We're in the process because of the system that court has. It's called Full Court. Christina's going to be going to a training class in April that will allow her at the push of a button essentially to give us all those things broken down as far as where they came from and what their citations were. But in December, they were about 50 of the 100, and I believe it was 112, 50 of them were Coralenos who were speeding. And so it's not just folks from out of town, so to speak, that are, but I had a delivery at my house last week and I cautioned them about the speed limit. Oh, no, we know not to speed in Corrales. So the word is still out. The word is still out, and that's a fine thing. Fine.
Did you,
Just,
Councilwoman?
just a quick question, if I could, Mayor. You mentioned the number of 112, and then this is 43 speeding for this month. That's about a third of what was previous month. Do we know why the significant drop?
Well, no.
Okay.
But that's again, another one of the, we had a police officer I know for sure that was being very aggressive.
As the
And
chief indicated.
yeah,
last month,
and
yeah.
so again, that's not a bad thing.
Right, right.
But people are certainly aware that we as a village want the people to slow down.
Yeah, and Ron, if I may, Councilor Holman, Mayor and Council, and as I indicated last month, it did taper down some of the newness and the overzealousness, or maybe just zealousness, not necessarily over, of the new officer writing these citations, but and there are a lot of other activities too. January is an extremely busy month. And there are a lot of things that we don't post about on Nextdoor because they don't affect community safety, but we're actively investigating a couple of child abuse cases right now, unfortunately, and they're very time consuming, and those things require a lot of man hours. And so there are other reasons why the traffic enforcement is still being conducted, but not necessarily the only activity out there, as everyone's aware.
Or it could be
Yeah,
as
yeah.
the word is out.
There might just be less violators too. Let's hope that's the case, right?
Except for that one
Yeah.
case this past week when the guy was.
Oh, on Tierra and Quintana, yeah, absolutely. It turned out that he would been tearing up downtown Albuquerque all morning too, since about 4 o'clock. And there's, we happen to have an officer here working seatbelt overtime, sitting right here in front of the courthouse, watching him. It wasn't a seatbelt violation, but he was passing on the wrong side of the road and ran somebody off the road. The officer initiated chase, but knew enough to terminate because it was, it was too dangerous, but he could still hear the car. It was so loud that he followed with his ears. And then we get the 911 call from the poor resident who got home invaded at the time. So, yeah, it's been busy.
Yes, Stuart.
All right, thank you, Mayor. Yeah, in your report, you talk about traffic stops, self-initiated 199. So does this mean that you're encompassing all these traffic stops like for speeding or anything, or is it,
Yeah, so, Councilor Mayor, Council, the total number of traffic stops is about double the number of citations. So the officers are given plenty of verbal warnings as well. Conducting educational encounters, which, we do encourage. They go a long way. Even good drivers have bad days. And so if they feel that that person deserves a break, then it's completely their discretion.
okay, thank you.
Anyone else? Chief, thank you very much. I appreciate it.
So we're going to close on the Wells Fargo building and we're closing as soon as we sign the documents. And then the check will be issued probably to them on Friday. So we will be the proud owners of the Wells Fargo Bank across the street, certainly by Monday, March 4th. And so there's been a lot of work and a lot of consultation put into it, but it's a good thing. We've got it done and continues to expand what we think will be continued development of a village complex here that we have.
Yes, sir, Councilwoman.
Ron, I'm not sure it is the appropriate time to ask this, but it has to do with the Wells Fargo building and the LGIP. And I was wondering if I could ask some specific questions
Sure.
about that. You mentioned in the narrative that we have 3,781,000 and change in the LGIP. We started out, I believe, with about 4.3 million initially, and then we've been collecting interest on a monthly basis, and you've been reporting that. If you continue on, it seems to be that there's a gap missing. I know we've bought a lot of properties using the general fund for that rather than the LGIP. Unless it was LGIP, which was reimbursed and then spent out. But it looks like there's about $600,000. There's a gap there. By transferring the 379,000 from LGIP, less the 2.180 in reserve that we voted on for rainy day fund. I just want to get the figures right. What seems to be we left with about 1,222,000 available. Does that sound about right? No?
No.
No.
What we bought the Anderson property, we paid for out of general fund. We bought the Gonzalez property out of the LGIP.
Okay.
And so that's
That was
the
paid.
that's the difference.
Okay.
The Gonzalez property was paid for out of the LGIP, and the council gave us approval to spend as we intended
Sure.
on the Anderson property. So what we're looking at on the Wells Fargo building is to probably pay for it out of the general fund so that we can continue to collect interest and then possibly, well, not possibly, then reimburse the general fund out of the LGIP.
The 379.
Right.
Okay.
Well,
There will be 2 million plus left.
Oh, yes.
It's going to be above the number that was passed in, it's 2.2 or 4 or something.
Well,
We're not going below that number.
yeah, no,
Okay.
we'll still
Yeah,
be
gotcha.
above $3 million when it's all said and done.
So these numbers are about right.
Right, those two.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Okay.
Great. Thank you.
My error. Okay,
Okay, one more thing.
okay.
So today, the mayor and I and Melanie had the opportunity to spend about 30 minutes in a team call with State Auditor Joe Maestas regarding the SHREC, or the communication systems that we all use for the police department and the fire department use for dispatch. Because as you've seen, all the letters that have taken place between County Manager Wayne Johnson and the mayor and the manager of Rio Rancho, that they're divorcing us. And so Mayor Fahey, along with Wayne Johnson, but Mayor Fahey's letter, in my opinion, was more effective, asked that there be an audit take place so that the assets that we have versus the assets that Rio Rancho has and the assets of Sandoval County, Bernalillo, and Santa Ana has are all looked at. And as we talked with Auditor Maestas today, we explained to him, as the mayor did in his letter, we talked about the fact that this was a divorce that was initiated by Rio Rancho. So the mayor had asked through a letter to Auditor Maestas to come in here and make sure that when this divorce takes place next year in July, that we know what the baseline accounting is of who has what and who owes what, if anything. And so Auditor Maestas, his first response was that he didn't want to get involved in this necessarily. His second response into the letter from the mayor and others was that he was going to get very much involved. And so in our conversation today, he discussed with the fact that he's already had a conversation with Rio Rancho. He's had a conversation with Sandoval County. He's going to have a conversation with the town of Bernalillo and Santa Ana. And they're going to look back at the funds and the expenditures, and they've given us a letter already of what we need to produce for them, but they're going to go back to 2015 and look at the expenditures to make sure that any assets that we have or any expenditures that we have had are correct, so that when we have this divorce and that we start to build our new communication systems for our citizens, that we know who has what and who owes what. And the whole purpose and Auditor Maestas, along with the mayor, completely agree with the fact that our purpose when the mayor wrote this letter was to make sure that the citizens, the villagers of Corrales would have the adequate protection that we needed when we have a dispatch. In conversations with Chief Martinez and Chief Mangiacarpa, that we felt that we were getting adequate response when we had an issue that came up. And that was expressed in our meeting today. So the auditor is completely on board on doing this audit. He's a former mayor of Espanola, and he used the expression that he knows when shoes drop, that the mayors have to respond to that and the council has to respond to that. And so he's all in on getting this done and making sure that the village of Corrales is adequately covered as far as any expenditures that we've had, and that the village of Corrales is adequately covered going forward as far as protecting our citizens on these dispatches. So this is an issue that's been going on certainly since I've been here. In 2019, I can recall getting visits from Mayor Hull and Manager Johnson to talk about this. And we wanted to make sure that there was not just a personality or a conflict between Mr. Johnson and Mayor Hull. And we looked out for the fact that we were concerned just about providing the good basic services that our fire department and police department need to serve the public of Corrales. So this audit will, we've been given deadlines and items that we have to give to them, and we're going to do that. And it was a good meeting, and we appreciate the fact that Auditor Maestas took the time to visit with us and visit with the mayor so that we could have what we need to give to them going forward.
Yes, Stuart.
Thank you, Mayor. So who's paying for this divorce? Are we going to be providing monies for the new facility, or
We
what?
probably will.
Is it
We don't have an answer for that because we have to identify. This is kind of getting ahead, the horse, ahead of the horse, so to
Right.
speak. But we have to identify the funds. First of all, you have to remember that Rio Rancho did it all. They had the building, they had the equipment, they had the employees, and they basically provided a service, which on occasions was probably not the best. It certainly wasn't what our first responders would like to get sometimes. And then they, for whatever their reasoning was, they got upset with the county. And then they got into this contest that we've all talked about in the past, different things go on. And we've heard that they have established a capital fund that they would use for capital investments. Now, that capital fund, we're not quite sure how it came about, where the monies came from. We believe the monies came from money that we contributed as part of our costs. And then whatever they didn't need, they put into the fund. So we believe that some of that fund should be shared with the other members of the existing joint powers agreement. Those monies, if they do exist, can be used to help us allay some of the costs, from this divorce. But it's not like a real divorce. We can't just make Rio Rancho give us 50%. We're a real small player in all this. And so if it's all done by percentages, I think our percent is around 6% or something like that. Anthony, 6 or 8%, does that sound about right?
3%.
3?
Well, I'm just curious, is this, you think it's going to come up, be a tax assessment to everybody in the county to help pay for the new facility and then get these services up?
I don't think that'll happen. I mean, that really hasn't come up. The county is just basically doing it all right now. They hired a contractor to help us put this together and they're funding that. And all we're doing is contributing, what we can and what they ask us to. A lot of it's just collecting information and data about, what we need and what they have and what we have and what can be used and what can be shared, whatever. So this is a very early, I guess you could say, early information to tell you guys what's happening because you raised the question once about the SCREC and so we're telling you that we're finally getting the auditor to step in to be the unbiased third party to kind of, calm the waters, which it appears they have because a few months ago, I mean, they were just like this, they being the county and Rio Rancho. And Jack Torres and I just kind of look at each other like, what is going on here? Jack Torres is the mayor of Burnley Education. And right about this same time, the 1st of January, they got a new governor at the Pueblo. So he's kind of brand new. He doesn't have a clue what's going on yet. He may now. So we will keep you informed as we find out more, but we don't know how much it's going to cost to answer your question.
Okay.
We're just very pleased that the auditor has decided to step in and help us with this because his initial reaction was not to. Yeah. And I think it was the fact that he got letters from the mayor and he got a letter from Mayor Torres, and he's a former mayor of Española, and he understands how smaller communities are dependent on other sources. And so I thought his response was very helpful for the village going forward.
Yes. His initial response was very confusing for all of us. But today he was very clear. He's going to provide us a service, going to take care of things, or it's going to help us work through this. Let's put it that way. Anybody? Yes, Bill.
Mayor, I'm not sure it's the appropriate time, but do we know definitively what the capital outlay monies are coming to Corrales? Again, given that
Key word there is definitively.
Yeah.
No, we don't know.
and we know that the governor could line item veto some of these things. We don't know.
We have another couple, 3 weeks or something.
March
like
6th,
that.
I think. So, but we don't know at this point what it kind of feeds into a later discussion we're gonna have. I'm wondering if we know when some of the,
We know what some of the numbers are,
Yeah.
but they're not definitive.
right,
I can tell you that. I haven't got those here.
could you? You share that?
You want to talk about it later, whenever you want to bring it up? What are you going to bring it up in later?
Well, it was no, discussion during the closed session, it could affect some of the numbers.
Oh, yeah, let's do that. That makes more sense.
Sense.
Because these are very, we don't know.
Yeah.
See, Rick, he's over
He-
here making the same
But he's got,
motions I'm doing.
yeah, but he's got deep pockets, you know. so-
Okay, you good? All right. so now we
Mayor,
can-
if I may, just real fast. Lynn would like to invite the community out to the grand opening of the new gymnasium this Saturday, March 2nd, from noon to 2. There will be food from Parea's Restaurant. I believe we're getting some burritos and pizza from Village Pizza. There will also be a band so we can hear how the acoustics are in the new gym, if that's going to work for the community. And he will have the courts set up for like pickleball and basketball, all that kind of stuff. So everyone is welcome to come out. It's all free. And there will also be, everybody who attends will get a raffle ticket also for free. And the prize will be a weekday pool party.
Stuart, you can have your birthday
to.
party at the pool.
Again.
Boy, I'm really looking forward to the ski lessons though.
With a bicycle.
That's
Okay,
during Viva Corrales, April 28th.
okay, all right. So now we'll go to Counselors Forum. Counselor Knight.
Thank you, Mayor. I have some concerns about the committees that are working right now. There's 2 committees that have been appointed and they have been tasked to get surveys, to have open meetings, and their surveys have been in Spanish and in English to make sure they get everybody in Corrales to participate. One is the multi-use committee for the building over by where the Jones property used to be, and also the comprehensive plan committee. The reason I'm bringing this up is because I had one of those committee members call me and ask me to talk to them. And I said to this person, you're on the committee. You are getting information and synthesizing it, and you will present to this council, when you're ready. I don't think I should be lobbied from a committee member if they feel as though things aren't going their way on the committee because they're getting all this information, that they should contact counselors and talk to them. Like, I don't have any problem with somebody coming up to me at the post office. I have gotten emails from people about the committees, but committee members are a different story. And I feel as though, there was a question whether my husband should be on the comprehensive committee, because then I'd have more information than everybody else on the council. There was a meeting at my house this morning and I left. I don't ever talk to him about things about that comprehensive committee, because I say, we all need to get the same information. I'll get it when everybody else gets it. So I just caution my other fellow counselors that this is the way I thought things were supposed to work with these 2 committees, the multi-use committee and the comprehensive plan committee, that we're all going to get the same information at the same time. And I caution that, again, committee members are maybe lobbying us because, again, they're seeing, well, geez, I want things this way, and the majority of people want things this way. I said, go back and talk to your committee and talk about that. I don't want to be involved until the end. So again, I just wanted to share that with my other fellow council members.
Thank you. Yes, sir. Counselor Murray.
Thank you, Mayor. Yeah, so this past month, I've had both a meeting with the Metropolitan Transportation Board and the Water Resource Board. Metropolitan Board is, we passed the annual safety plan. And again, what they're aiming for is, since we are the highest number of pedestrian fatalities, they're aiming at level. It's about 5% of what the 10-year trend is giving. So even though I brought it up, the fact that we ought to be more aggressive about it, sometimes they say they can backfire on us. But anyway, we approved that plan. They're also working on the 2045 plan update, which means that they're looking at the transportation requirements for the area and so forth. So those two things are what we discussed in the MTB meeting. The Water Resource Board meeting was pretty interesting because we had an interesting panel. Senator, Stefanik was there. Also, we had some other members there, but what it comes down to is in 2023, they passed a bill about the water resources. This year, they're going to work on the rules and guidelines. And then in 2025, they're going to start setting up the regional networks for the water. And then in 2029, they're going to integrate the plan and they're going to bring it out on, roll it out as for the water resources. Since they posted, they said basically that New Mexico has the least amount of surface water available. Basically what it comes down to of all the states around us. And water is going to become a very valuable resource. I'm not sure how we're going to handle the economics of balancing the water requirements and keeping our economy going. But anyway, look for at least in the next 5 years, you're going to see a lot of activity with the water resource. Now, the other downside of that was out of all the agencies that we had listed on that could have been there, 9 of us only were there representing the Water Resource Board. We couldn't even make quorum, therefore we couldn't elect officers. And it's pretty sad when even the largest user of water, Albuquerque, didn't even bother to show up. So, but anyway, out of those 2 meetings, there's things coming. And I would like to see the Water Resource Board meet more than quarterly because that's too long of a period for things to happen. And I think they need to meet more often and be more interactive. Anyway, that's all I have.
So when they've had these meetings talking about water resources, has reuse come up?
Oh, yeah.
Because we've actually, thanks to Michael, we've actually dipped our toe in the water with this 50,000 we got last year to look into to perhaps, get a preliminary engineering report on the feasibility of using a membrane bioreactive water treatment system to recycle some of our step water to use in place of the potable well water that we have for, watering the roads that are dirty and perhaps even for fighting fires.
I think you're going to see that they're going to be looking at all possible sources of water. I asked if the brackish water had been surveyed. No, that hadn't even been done yet because they say that there are so many different types of brackish water. They haven't even defined the various types of water that they can't use for, as potable water.
Well, now the county did that a few years ago.
Yeah,
They really,
I mean, I'm statewide. I'm looking of all the 16 regions that they've defined. They haven't done that. They haven't mapped that out yet. But anyway,
okay.
stay tuned.
Well, thank you. Thank you. Anybody else? Okay, we'll move on to Coriolanus Forum. This section is for informational purposes only, not for discussion and debate to inform the governing body of an issue or concern that would not be addressed on the agenda during the business session. There is a 3-minute time limit. Time limits may be reduced if there's a large number of people wishing to speak. That hasn't really happened. Okay.
No.
That looks like something new. Okay, who's up?
Our one and only speaker tonight is Mr. Kurt Flora. Mr. Flora, if you could please state your name and address for the record, you will have 3 minutes.
My name's Kurt Flora, 560 Andrews Lane, Corrales, New Mexico. Y'all probably missed me in the last month. I've been in St. Louis taking care of my brother, who's
I hope
been in
he's
the
okay.
hospital since February 14th of 2023.
Oh, my God.
He has an artificial heart. February 14th, 2023, he had a stroke. So now he's a permanent resident in the St. Louis Hospital, Barnes-Jewish.
Wow.
I've been up there to take over his durable and medical power of attorney. That's what I've been doing for the last month. You guys don't know who I really am. You guys don't. You guys know me for the past 5.5 years arguing with you. That's all you know about me. You don't know in 2001, when I met my wife, we got married. All we did until 2008 was care for her parents, both of us as their caregivers. They both had dementia. That's what we did for the first part of our life. The second part of our life was when we started pretty much fighting this village. 2018, I lost my sister, had to go down and take care of all of her estates and everything else that there. Okay. So not only was I here fighting this village for 5.5 years, I've been taking care of my family, my wife, and everything else involved. People ask me why I don't volunteer in Corrales and do stuff for Corrales, because my plate is full. My plate is full. And today there was another incident at my property. I fought 5 years for a 20-foot easement for the fire trucks to get into my property. You guys forced a 30-foot easement when a 20-foot easement was all they needed, and it was proved today. It was proved today at 60-mile-an-hour winds coming through Albuquerque or to Corrales. At the time that fire hit my property, the branches came down. We've been asking P&M for years and years to cut these limbs. They come out and they do 1 or 2 limbs and they leave the rest. Well, it happened. This is the second fire we've had on the property because of P&M's negligence. Okay. Well, I just want all you all to know I'm not the asshole you think I am. You don't know me is what it is. You don't know who I am. You don't know who my wife is and what we do in our lives. Okay. Not a one of you ever has came up and shook my hand and said anything to me. The day the mayor here was approved to be mayor, I went to shake his hand. He refused to shake my hand. He refused, walking in the door, to shake my hand.
Thank you, Mr. Flora. That's your time.
Okay. Let's move on. Consent agenda. I need a motion to approve the consent agenda, please.
Mayor, I'd like to remove an item from the consent agenda,
Okay,
24-09.
okay. Need a motion to approve the minutes for February 13th, 2024.
So moved. I'll second.
In a second. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay. So now we need a motion to approve resolution 24-09, the bar. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Do I have a second?
I'll second that.
And a second from Zach. What is it you would like to talk about?
I just wanted
Councilwoman?
to, this is on the bar, for setting up a special fund for animal services. I just wanted to get some clarity, if I could, on what the 3 items are for.
So there's a little paragraph, I'm looking for it right
Right.
now, that follows
It
that.
says it's setting up a special account.
The problem is the money is from last year. And so she has to help me with this.
Yeah, if I may, Mayor and Council. So when we received the donation from Dennis Friends, they asked that it be put in a special fund because they wanted to be able to see that on, a line item on the budget. But we had received $25,000 from Commissioner Brock that had been received the previous year. So those funds did not get commingled properly. So now that we're trying to pay bills, stuff isn't coming out of the right fund. So this is really just a paperwork shuffle for Raina to be able to have stuff show up properly in our audit for this fiscal year.
It's so when they audit us, the accountants can follow the money, the trail, the paper trail. And that's what she's doing here.
So it says it's for, the first one, the $48,010 is for animal control building supplies,
Yeah, those are the expenditures that we've already paid out from those funds.
similar building supplies, the 7,800. The 179,940, is that the money received from Dennis Friends for the building?
Total from Dennis Friends was 242 and some change. So I don't remember the exact number off the top of my head.
That's a big, that's a big number, the 179.
Yeah.
It's significantly more than you get on on an annual basis from Dennis Friends.
Right, yes.
But we don't know what that's for.
So they're different funds. They have different numbers.
Right,
You go
three
look at
different-
them, they're
three different
different
funds.
numbers. And so she had to move them from one fund to another because of the year.
Yeah, all the money is the same as what was done on a previous bar. This is just moving it to a different fund number. So it's really just a shuffle among paperwork at the level for auditing purposes.
Unless your
So-
accountant
yeah.
is not intuitive.
Right.
Mayor,
Oh, and Raina's on.
Oh, excuse me, Raina.
Mayor, Councilor Murray, that one. So what it is it's 242,000 and then another 25,000.
Right.
Some expenditures were spent out of one fund. Money was received in a different fund. So I've had to move some expenditures from this year, move expenditures from previous years. So I have to move actual cash. So some of it is expenditure, some of it is revenue. It all adds up to the 242 plus the 25 from Sandoval County.
Okay. Okay. And one last question, if I
Yeah.
could.
Mhm.
Other than salaries and vehicles, how much money is the village actually spending on the care of animals? Do we know? Not,
Should be in the budget. I
Not-
can tell you right now.
okay, not money received from the foundation, but village money.
I'd have to look at the budget. I don't know that number off the top of my head.
That number will be in the budget. You know, how much we've spent so far and how much we budgeted.
Well, but that would be blended with, would that be village money or would that be money that we received from the Dennis Friends Foundation?
I don't know that answer.
Mayor,
They're separate.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay.
So the-
Mayor,
I'm sorry.
It's
Raina, go
both.
ahead.
it's both. We have a special fund, but we also use general fund money.
We do. Okay. Okay. Great. Thank you, Raina. Go back to sleep.
You're welcome.
You know, she had surgery.
As what?
She had a surgical procedure.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah, she is kind of resting.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay.
Can we take a vote
So
on
can we
the,
move on that?
on the
All right.
bar?
Do you have to have another motion?
Yes.
No, we
No,
have-
she had the motion.
we had the
just
motion,
have
we
to
just need to vote.
So how do you vote, Counselor Mira?
Yes, sir.
Counselor Woolman?
Aye.
Counselor Knight? Counselor Alsabrook?
Aye.
Counselor Burkett?
Aye.
Counselor Murray?
Okey dokey.
I'm sorry, what'd you say?
Okey dokey.
Okie dokie. Okay, very good. I think my head is kind of stopped up. Do I sound kind of funny?
Sultry. You sound sultry.
Allergies.
What?
You sound very sultry this evening.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah. I wouldn't go there.
You don't know what that means? Don't touch me. Oh, okay, new business. Calm down, guys. New business. Consideration action approval of resolution 2410, approval of overhead power line. I need a motion to approve the resolution for an overhead power line.
I move that we approve resolution 2410.
We did that.
Yep.
Now we're here.
Right, but you have one vote, so was that,
This is 2410.
We approved the minutes.
Right.
And then we approved the ball. We're good.
I was just feeling.
Are we good?
We are good.
Yeah,
good.
Okay.
No, but now we need a second on the,
Second on resolution 24-10.
yes,
You got it.
Okay, thank you. That's Counselor Mira.
yes.
Any questions? Yes, ma'am.
How come they're not putting it underground?
There is an overhead line already, and if they put it underground, it costs us more. And so they'll do the overhead because it's already there at no cost to us
'Cause I-
or the people.
I do believe the applicant, Brian Wolford, is here.
He wrote a letter. I saw
Yeah.
that. Oh, here he is. Oh, you here? You want to come up here and talk about it a little bit?
And we do have one member of the public that would like to speak as
The
well.
question is, why is the line overhead and not underground?
Mostly for expense reasons. It would just cost me quite a bit more to do an underground line versus an overhead line. And then in accordance with the village ordinance, there was an exception in 17-012 to allow for an overhead line if the area was mostly serviced by overhead lines, which happens to be the case in this particular property
Right.
on Guadalupe Lane.
Okay, I just wanted to check because as you heard from a previous speaker, you know, with the overhead lines, sometimes with the wind and the branches, you know, it's dangerous. So I just was asking that. If is it a new property or is it a property that you're purchasing that already has a house on it? You don't. mind me
No,
asking.
it's a totally new development. So right now it's just farmland, but at some point, hopefully I can build on it.
Okay.
Right,
thank
right
you.
now.
Council Burkett.
Yep, so it looks like it's gonna go over a neighbor's property. Do those neighbors have a strong opinion overhead versus underground? Because it seems like you would also have to trench through their property potentially, or a long trench from Corrales Road, one or the other. So what is the neighbor's thoughts on said line?
Yeah, that's right. So the neighbor did give me a easement to go through their property with an overhead line. I imagine that they would prefer the overhead just so I don't have to cut through their yard and there'd be obviously digging. It's towards the back of their property, so I don't imagine it would be a problem for her. That said, I haven't proposed the question to her. Do you prefer this or that?
Right.
I just assumed that the overhead line would be the best approach.
So an overhead line is what you chose and you base that on the cost. Do you know what it would cost to put it under, what extra cost you would have to pay to put it underground?
I don't have that figure exactly, but I think it would be a few $1,000s more if I had to guess.
Yeah, because the one time, John, you remember there was something we wanted to do a few years ago, put some lines underground and it was going to cost the village.
Prohibitive. It was
The whole village was going to be docked for it because it was a long line and it was, it would have been better because of the overhead stuff.
Yeah,
But it was a huge expense.
much different length than what you're discussing.
Yeah, but it was a huge
Million
expense
dollars.
per foot.
It was millions
Yeah.
total, because the per linear foot
Yeah,
was really high.
Yeah.
okay.
Yeah,
Thank you.
that's all. Thank you.
Well, does anybody else have a question?
And we do have one member of the public that would
Okay.
like to speak.
All right.
Mr. Flora, you've already identified yourself, so you'll have your 3 minutes.
Yes, I would like to post these just for the gentleman here. If I can bring it up here to the screen so everybody can see it, to know what I'm talking about. Gentlemen, can you, I don't know what your name is. Oh,
Brian.
Brian, my name is Kurt Wall, and I'm going to propose putting in a overhead. Reason for being, I had a fire on my property this morning. These right here. People can look in the camera right there.
There it is.
Back there.
Move it a little bit closer to you.
But this is my property. And the damage that was done to my property this morning. As you can see right there. Okay. So you can see right here, I'm gonna try to zoom in. There was extensive damage to the property this morning by an overhead power line. We've been fighting an easement battle with all this. That's showing the fire department here has plenty of access with the 20-foot easement. I'm not going to get into that right now. You can see they got all their fire trucks into the road. But I'm going to say to you, and not only you, but to the whole village of Corrales, put the lines underground. Because not only was it a fire hazard for me and I almost lost my whole property, and our property is not cheap in Corrales. And now the damage that this fire has cost me way exceeds what it's going to cost you just to put that line underground. Okay, think about not only yourself, but think about your neighbors. Now, I call P&M because not only the fire that was caused by that spark of that tree this afternoon, I have the power lines all the way down the 6 acres. We've been dealing with trying to get P&M to come out and take care of this for 10, 20 years since I've been in Corrales. Every year, 2 or 3 times a year, we ask them to come take care of the trees that are along the power line. They say they put a work order in every year. They'll come and take care of that one issue, the one tree, but they don't take care of all the rest of it. Now, one of the trees that is sitting behind my house right now, directly behind my house, is right into them power lines. And it's ready to spark. And I asked the tree trimmers that they're there today. I asked them, we need to take that tree out right there because you can see it's touching those lines. He tells me, he goes, I can't take that out without a work order, and I can't take that out without the permission of the homeowner. The homeowner came out from their house and said, take that out.
Thank you, Mr.
Okay.
Flora. That's your.
Thank you, Mr. Flora.
Refused to take it out. Yeah, put one order in today.
Thank you.
Please go underground. A little bit more costly.
So, Mr. Wolford, I guess we're through. Does anybody have any more questions for Mr. Wolford? Thank you, sir. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Okay. Any more discussion? Anybody have anything else they want to say?
Existing.
Mayor, this is Councilor Murray.
Existing. Right, don't you?
All right, well, then let's have a vote.
Wait, Counselor Murray.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Councilor Murray, I didn't see your
I
hand.
mean, I think Mr. Flora has a point that P and M is not following up and trimming the trees like they should. I mean, even in my area, my utilities are kind of underground, but they do come from an overhead power line, which runs through a lot of trees to Corrales Road. And every time we have a high wind, you can just watch the limbs come down on those lines. I think that we need to really push P and M to follow up with these, with cleaning up these trees where the power lines are at, because like you said, and what was demonstrated today is a pretty good example of it. Well, I understand.
Anthony, did you want to make a comment? This is really not, this is a little bit out of order because we're actually discussing allowing someone to go ahead and do what we've said in by ordinance, but Anthony has dealt with this for a long time and he can offer some insight.
Mayor, council, yes, I think you've heard me talk about this and I have recently met with the new individual in charge of the program for P and M for vegetation management. We had a really good meeting. We're moving forward. We discussed their plans. I'm going to keep in communication with them. I'd like to see a copy of their vegetation management plan. Mr. Curry and I have had this conversation and but also it goes to the homeowner, right? There needs to be, they stress to us that, you know, they come out here and they try to manage your lines, but sometimes they have limited access to property. People are, citizens are parking or building things in their way and they can't get to their property line. So easements are something that we need to look at. And if they have a utility easement, they need to be, you know, open to them to maintain whatever utilities in that easement. And also, you know, with overhead power lines, whether they're existing or new properties such as tonight that you're discussing and voting on, maybe some requirements. I was looking over the plans tonight. I didn't see any sort of easement on the diagram. But just educating the new property owner that please don't plant a tree in this easement because they grow. And trying to avoid that and having some sort of clear buffer area. So.
Yes, sir.
So by putting this power line overhead, is there a requirement that the easement be established for maintenance?
I don't know. I believe so. I don't think P and M or any utility would run their infrastructure in other than an easement. They have to have rights. I believe the property owner still owns the property, but the utility company has a right to go and service their utility. They're obligated.
But I mean,
I don't know the answer to that question.
yeah.
It's probably a good one to ask them since we do talk to P and M quite frequently.
Well, and obviously it's not marked on the plat, you know, that we have before us tonight. I'm just curious, is there an easement that would follow that line across the property?
Usually there are easements for them to work on the line. Usually it's something like, 10 feet plus. So they can get in there with a piece of equipment or a truck to lift them up, so they can get up high. But, P and M is, we're having issues with P and M and all over the state, not just us, but all over the state. There's problems. They lack manpower and they have a lot of stuff to do. And we've discussed the lines and how they sometimes with these heavy winds, where they can knock down these power lines. There's several places in the village where there's power lines totally covered by tree limbs. Some of the limbs are dead. So it's just it's waiting to happen. But again, it's on private property. So you just can't walk up there and start cutting away. But it is something that's, on the radar. It's just, we don't have an answer for you for tonight. Thank you, Anthony. Yes, sir. Why don't you come up here and ask your question?
We just had our plat done and we were forced to put a public utility easement on the plat.
Good.
That was part of our condition,
That's the way it should be.
correct?
That's the way it should be.
So I hate to be the catalyst to this guy's doing whatever he's doing.
It may come
But
up.
I fought for 5 years against putting the
Okay,
public utility
your
on
question.
property.
thank you.
I was forced to do it.
Okay. All right.
So, Mr. Mayor,
Yes, sir. Councilor Meir.
well, I think that poses a question to the owner. Did you have conversations with P and M putting in the line, and did they
You had-
somehow either insist or insinuate that you may have to have that property with an easement
I did-
underneath the lines?
I did have a conversation with P and M and they did require an easement to be created between the current existing pole and the new location where I hope to have a new pole on my property.
Okay.
And so then we had to go through the process of having a surveyor come out and having my neighbor sign off an agreement saying that they're okay with installing an easement on their property. And so we went through that whole process and
And also, Mr. Mayor, and also an easement on your neighbor's property as well?
yes, that's right.
So both of you have it? Or will
Yes.
have it?
Yeah. So the easement, will run across my neighbor's property, across Guadalupe Lane and then onto my property.
Final question, Mr. Mayor. Are there any trees on anywhere in that easement that you have already identified?
Not that I'm aware of. There might be a small tree in the vicinity. I don't think it's directly underneath where the easement is, but right now it is a small tree. So it does have the potential to grow and cause problem in the future. But I don't believe it's right underneath where the proposed line is. That said, I would need to verify that. If you're interested, I can get back to you on that.
I
Thank you.
did find the relevant section of Village Code if anybody wants it. We do require a utility easement and all final plats do have to have a place for the utilities to sign off on them. So that is in Village Code.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. Resolution 24-10, approval of overhead power line. How do you vote, Councilor Meir?
Yes, sir.
Councilor Woolman?
Aye.
Councilor Knight?
Aye.
Councilor Alsobrook?
I vote aye.
Councilor Burkett?
Aye.
Councilor Murray?
Aye.
Okay, that passes. Consideration, action and approval of resolution 24-11, approval for LGIP expenditure. These are the funds for the Wells Fargo building that you're going to spend this week.
Yes.
Okay. But you want to talk about it a little bit?
Well,
I mean, you already talked about it.
just for the benefit of the council, our intention is again, to Counselor Woolman's question, is that we're trying to maintain the interest in the as the resolution states, we're trying to maintain the interest gathering that $400,000 will be. And so if we take it out of general fund to pay for it, then we're going to pay the LGIP back for it.
So moved.
So I need a motion to approve the LGIP expenditure
So moved.
Second.
in a second. Any other discussion? Since we sort of did that a little out of order. Okay, hearing none. How do you vote, Councilor Murray?
Aye.
Councilor Burkett?
Aye.
Councilor Alsobrook?
Aye.
Councilor Knight?
Aye.
Councilor Woolman?
Aye.
And Councilor Mira?
Yes, sir.
So now I need a motion to go into closed session
So moved.
Second.
pursuant to NMSA let me finish, 1978, section 10-15-1H8. The village council will go into executive session. Is that your motion, Councilor Mira?
It certainly is.
And who seconded it? And also Brooke, you're going to second that motion?
I do.
Okay.
Mayor, can I ask a question?
Yeah,
Do-
sure.
Do we have to change the verbiage in any way to have somebody from the Farmland Preservation Commission go into that executive session as well?
I'm not aware of that. I think we can invite them
don't
to
think so.
come
Okay.
present evidence, and then as soon as they've presented their evidence, they leave.
Perfect.
Okay.
Thank you.
Council Murray, how do you vote?
Yes.
Council Burkett?
Yes.
Council also vote?
Yes.
Councilor Knight?
Aye.
Councilor Woolman?
Aye.
Councilor Mira?
Yes, sir.
Okay. We're in executive session.
Mayor. Mayor.
Yes, sir.
Dr. Curry.
So we've been in closed executive session and no decisions were made. Now I need a motion to come out of closed session pursuant to MSA 1978, section 10-15-1H8. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
I have a motion and a second. I have a motion from Councilor Knight and a second from Councilor Murray. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Okay, we're now in open session. Is there anybody who wants to discuss anything or make any motion? I would like to have a motion that we set aside $1 million for road work and $1 million for a fire substation. Council Murray.
Thank you, Mayor. I'm kind of the opinion that the bond issue's been issued in a format where we're 2 million for farmland preservation, 1 million each for the fire and the public works. And I think that's how we ought to divide it.
I just asked for that.
Well, you asked for 1 million for work or public roads and fire. I'm thinking that we need to include farmland preservation, at least a portion of that.
Well, we can't. We
Yeah,
can't, we well, I mean, we
well,
can, but
here's
it gets a lot more difficult and complicated. The
Well,
more the more things
Here's
we
my
put in.
rationale about this, though. So if we issue $1 million for farmland preservation, it takes us to June before we get the bonds issued. You got 3 years from that date till we spend the money. Within that 3 years, we'll have another bond issue coming up. Then we can allocate the rest of the farmland preservation money for whatever we're going to purchase. If we have something lined up, then we can go ahead and spend that money. And like you said, if it exceeds the $1 million that we have allocated for the farmland preservation, we take it out of the LGIP and then we pay ourselves back when the next bond issue comes around. So I think we got to split this up at least between all three bond issues just to cover our bases, because if there are properties available that come up and fit the budget, then we can do it. And I know Zach, where he feels that we ought to do the entire thing, but I'm a little worried about having excess funds left over and nothing to buy with.
Can I
Well-
ask, sorry,
Councilor Burkett.
just a follow-up question to something that Counselor Waldman asked earlier today. Can we talk about what we preliminarily think we are going to get from the state as far as funding currently? What I'm looking at, it looks like about 300,000 for fire, looks like about 700,000 for public.
Wait a second, I'll
works.
tell you.
Perfect.
West Meadow Lark Lane improvement, $693,000. Corrales Fire Line and Water Tower Construction, 100,000. Corrales Fire Substation Construct, 100,000. We'll put that with the 198 and the 1 million. That will give us enough to build a substation. Corrales Fire Training Facility, 100,000. Gym equipment for the Parks and Rec, 80,000. Corrales Historic Church Wall Repair, 275,000. That's it. Yes, ma'am.
So you didn't say anything about roads in there, right?
Meadowlark.
Middle Lark.
Only West
Other
Middle.
roads. 'Cause I have a question to the lawyer. I wanted to know that since the bonds were, some of that money was designated to roads, and those roads are public roads. If the work is not done to those roads and there is a huge rainstorm and because of the roads not being done, people's properties are impacted, could those people sue the village because those roads weren't taken care of?
It depends.
Would you like me
The
to?
village has a duty to maintain the roads, but it doesn't mean, it's not an open-ended obligation. You spend all the money in the world, and people file tort claims all the time because they ran into a pothole that they'll claim wasn't there the day before. So again, I know you hate to hear it from lawyers, but it depends.
Yeah, you know, someone asked me about it. I was like, oh my God, I didn't realize that. But that's an issue, I think, because, you know, again, you know, there's a good thing about rain and there's a bad thing. If you live on the west side and there's a downpour, those roads are a mess. And, you know, it has destroyed some people's homes or property. So that was my question, as far as with the bond money, you know, do we need to portion out some of that for the roads? Because people, especially on the west side, really want their roads taken care of.
Counselor Woolman,
Mayor, the Citizens of Corrales voted for $4 million in bonds. There were three items on the bond issue. I think, to be faithful to that vote, that in this tranche, we should divide it up among the three dedicated funds where it should go. And I would agree with Councilor Burkett, that we divided up perhaps $1 million for conservation and 500,000 each. My understanding is that perhaps, and perhaps Chief Martinez can answer this, that the fire substation could be phased in over time, or does the money all need to be upfront?
there is some benefit to not phasing any of this construction.
Cost.
It costs more to phase. We have an advantage in if we get this thing built, we get money back from the state fire marshal. We see money returned to individual homeowners in lowering rates.
Mhm.
So we would like to have the $1 million to finish the fire station, which we can do with the money we have plus the $1 million in 1 year, less than. By the end of the year, before the end of next year.
I just think we still have to be faithful to the voters of Corral.
You're not being unfaithful to the voters by selling the bonds in an appropriate way so that we get the biggest bang. The more you split them up, the more it costs to get the bonds.
Right.
Is that not correct?
Yes, it could be.
Yeah. Okay. So the answer is yes. Okay.
The answer was, it could be. The answer wasn't yes, it was maybe.
You're speaking of the capital fund versus the other. I'm sorry, this may be for later discussion, but
Okay.
I think I was on hold.
You have to wait. Oh, is he gonna? Okay, go ahead and ask your question since he sat back down.
Okay.
Mel.
I agree with Counselor Murray, that if we could some way use all the money now and then repay ourselves back in 2 years, so we make sure everything's covered, I like that idea.
I think you misunderstood what I said, but go ahead, John, go ahead.
Well, it was sort of a follow-up to Counselor Knight is what, in that spirit, with that approach, not the specifics, because I think there was a misunderstanding, but what's our LGIP liquidity, like, that we would max?
24 hours, 48 hours?
Yeah. And what's the amount that we've got?
3.7 million.
That's the total amount.
Okay, yeah, and we have to leave
You have to leave 2 point something million.
or to.
Yeah.
180.
You have to leave $2.1 million in it approximately, but the council can change that because it's a resolution. You can change it at
Okay,
any time.
Okay, thank you.
So
Counselor
Mayor,
Burkett.
so to follow up the previous two comments, I want to make a motion that we fund $2 million to conservation easements, $200,000 to each of the additional bonds, with my full blessing that if projects become available, LGIP funds will be used for those and we'll reimburse ourselves within the 18 months required by law out of a secondary bond, because those are going to be much easier to do that with than the conservation funds are. And then I think we can get all of our projects moving, just as Councilor Knight was talking about, but we have the ability to get these really critical pieces of property quickly. And we have some funding between what we're hoping to get from the state and a $200,000 infusion to get other projects started, and then fund those from other sources and reimburse ourselves from bond money. So that's my motion.
Can you repeat it?
Yes. So the simplest version of it is,
That's what I was looking for.
it'll be short and sweet. You're gonna love it. 2 million conservation bonds, 200,000 for public works, 200,000 for fire suppression.
Question,
Yes, sir, Council Mira.
200,000 out of LGIP?
No, that we can do 2.4 now and not affect the bond levy.
Okay, there's where the 0.4 came in. I was looking for the difference between that and the 1.6. Okay, thank you.
Do we have a
I'll
second?
second.
Oh, a second, we have a motion and a second to sell 2.4 million in bonds. 2 million for conservation easements. 200,000 for fire. 200,000 for roads. Is that correct?
Something I have
Yeah.
to add?
Any further discussion?
So just from a discussion point, do we need to add the context that we are willing to take money from LGIP to fund other additional projects? No, that's all something we can do in individual vote.
That's
Okay,
basically what we're trying to do now is just decide how we want to split up the bond.
perfect. Nope, as stands then.
Councilwoman.
Mayor, could I ask a question about the Metal Arc funding from the state?
Yes, sir.
Is that the amount that's needed to complete that project?
We believe so.
Okay. So
Because
there's
we
no,
have some funds, what, 130,000? Plus or minus. And
don't-
this was a number that I was given is, this is what it's gonna cost. But,
Okay,
this goes back a few years.
Yeah. No, I'm just wondering if the funds are fungible. I mean, in other words, if it stays in roads, does it have to go to Metal Arc? If it turns out that the amount is too much,
This money has to go to Metal Park.
it has to go to Metal Arc.
Yes, because that's part of
Okay.
we have a
Okay.
former legislator here who can
Right.
tell us that, once it's down, it's the way it is.
That's the way it is.
And that's what Melanie, that's what the request for the money of the legislature said, was West Metal Arc, correct?
yes,
It's
well,
Westlake.
upper Meadow
Yeah,
Lark
yeah.
Trail Project, yeah.
But on that point, on that 2 billion,
Yes, sir.
if it's not all needed, what do we do with the extra? Say we're able to do what we wanted to do with 1.9. I'm just getting to what do we do with the other 100,000? Do we have to go out and find some more property, or can that come back to us and then we could turn around and use it again?
Would have to be spent on land at some point, have some flexibility on when that happens.
Hey, would you come up to the microphone, please?
So yes, that money would have to be spent on land at some point, but you have some flexibility as to when that money can be spent. And then in the short term, we can go ahead and invest those proceeds. There are some restrictions around how much you can make, so you're not making more money than the bonds paying interest, but we can make it so you're not just sitting on cash empty handed. It would work for you a little bit.
And that would be my concerns, but if we have other pieces of land, we can utilize that as well.
Correct, yeah. So
Councilor Murray.
Thank you, Mayor. So I still have concerns about putting all the money into farmland preservation of 2 million. Especially if what we have targeted is much less and we have the excess left over, and we come back and look at another piece of property that costs more to put in farmland preservation, but we don't have the amount available because we have it sitting in a bank somewhere, just sitting there. We're gonna have to cough up some extra money for this other parcel to spend this additional whatever was left over from the initial purchase. I'm just concerned that we shouldn't put all of our eggs into farmland preservation this go around. I would like to see a lesser amount and more into the public works and public roads. That's my opinion.
Councilor Burkett.
I mean, so to address that, I think if we find properties that total more than 2 million, no matter how we split it up, we're gonna have to find more money. So I don't think that's a problem. I think we're kind of in a perfect scenario right now. Whatever the properties we want cost, if we have extra money, we have other properties that can be bought in a broad range of different sizes right now that could exactly eat up whatever we have left over. So we're really in a pretty good spot to know that we're not gonna have money sitting there that goes unused.
Councilor Knight.
I'd like to just put this on record that the roads, if we give 200,000 for roads, which is kind of nothing really.
Kind of nothing.
When Michael's ready to go with a project, when it's shovel ready, that we all agree that we will take some of that money from the LGIP. We can't do that?
Well, I mean, you can. I'm just shaking my head. That's
We have
all.
to vote.
I'm not saying no, I'm just shaking my head.
What'd you say? Yeah, you can't agree to it now, but know that that's out there. There's sign of a compromise here. That you know, that the roads will be addressed within, you know, 18 months or whatever.
But Mr. Mayor, that's the part where you said, I think we misunderstood. And what she said, assuming that scenario goes through,
Say again.
that we would have put some money in from Elgin, and then we go to the next go round for the next, then we could pay ourselves back.
There is a mechanism where we can reimburse LGIP.
Yep.
And it's,
Okay.
we have a year and a half. We have a year and a half from the time we sell the bonds. Is that sell the bonds? We put a little stipulation in there and then we can pay ourselves back.
There you go.
Michael, can you tell me how many of your projects are shovel ready? Ballpark?
Meadowlark, 700,000. Coronado, 407.
This is the same thing he told us already, by the way.
Already been designed.
Yeah. So he has several that have been designed and are ready to go. If we give him money, he'll spend it in a year. And he'll come back for more money in another year. I mean, we have lots of roads that need fixing. And that's why I'd kind of like to keep it simple. Just, you know, give him $1 million, give Anthony $1 million to do their work. See how this whole thing with farmland, I don't think it's such an emergency, quite frankly. Now, maybe I'm mistaken, but I think we have another opportunity to get a huge swath of land that the village, I know many people in the village would like to see as part of the village, and the village would own it and have control of it forever.
Yeah.
And if there's a stipulation needed that says we're not going to sell it to anybody, I'm certain we can do that. That's not a problem. And then the money that belongs to the village to pay for the bond, the property that we purchase stays with the village. They have a parking area that they desperately need down the commercial core. We have an enlargement of the park. We have walking pathways, perhaps. This is part of the property that we're talking with Main Street about, trying to design a plan to do this so it benefits the entire community, the entire village.
Yep.
Yes, sir.
So I think calling $200,000 nothing is, I mean, it's 20% of what they have. It's a lot of money. And with the 700,000 from the state, it's 90% of what the bond was. And I think that Mr. Chavez and Chief Martinez, there's no better stewards of money in this village. They do great work for the village. They're going to continue to great work. I think as long as they have projects that need to be funding and the funding's available, we're going to do it. And knowing that we have this alternative way to do that now with an 18-month kind of runway behind doing it, I think it's a great path to get all three of these things done. It's the only path in my mind to get all three of these things done in a timely manner.
So are we ready to call the question for a vote?
We didn't have a second.
We did.
We did.
Is that?
So can we review what it is? again
So
one more time?
are we
So
ready to call the question for
The
a vote?
motion you are voting on is to approve the 2 million for the farmland conservation easements with 200,000 for the roads and 200,000 for fire.
Councilor Murray, how do you vote?
No.
Councilor Burkett,
Yes.
Councilor Alsabrook,
Yes.
Councilor Knight,
Yes.
Councilor Woolman,
No.
Councilor Mira.
Yes.
That's 4-2.
Correct.
Yes.
Okay.
All right, Mayor.
Yes,
One
sir.
one other thing, I mean, we probably should have talked about this before the vote, but any expenses that we have towards issuing the bonds, we ought to just pay cash for that. We did not have it come out of the bond money, because that way we can utilize all the bond money as it is. Am I out of line?
Can we do that?
We'll look into that. Yeah, you can actually pay interest up front sometimes. Isn't that correct? You know, I know we've had situations in other areas and I think it was when we were refinancing, we were paying something, but anyway, it's.
That is correct. There are some ways you can pay that up front. With the approval of $2 million going towards land conservation, we would we are going to be doing the capital market sale. Through that mechanism, there is a way to get a premium built into the bonds because of where interest rates are right now. That would keep the project fund at $2 million for land and $200,000 for the other project. So that way everyone has the full amount like you wanted, and you wouldn't necessarily have to dip into the cash portion either. So that would keep your money available in the bank accounts, for later, and then make the money come out of a different source.
So by going to the capital markets, we would get all $2.4 million.
Right now, yes, you can get the full $2.4 million for your project fund. Because of where interest rates are right now, those bonds can be issued at a premium, which helps maintain the cost of issuance, and the fees to pay those bonds come out of that premium, and makes it so that full 2.4 million goes to the village and those projects that you did.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you very much. All right. Let me find my place now. So we have. Okay, consideration action and approval of direction to stifle public finance to begin preparation of bond sale documents, which we have done and passed. Okay. Thank you guys for being here. Anthony and Michael, appreciate it. All right, now we're going to discuss the rules of procedure for meetings of the governing body. Anybody want to start?
Can we table this?
Well, this is the last thing on the meeting.
This will be up for approval at the next meeting. So
If you don't have anything to say, we can, well, this is just discussion. If you don't have anything to discuss, yes, sir.
Okay, thank you, Mayor. So I do have a question. You got to explain it to me like I'm a 5-year-old. In our ordinances.
Melanie, you'll have to do that.
Yeah, please do.
Sure.
So what is the difference between anyone aggrieved and then aggrieved person? Is there a difference between those two distinctions?
If you're aggrieved, you're aggrieved.
No. I'm not sure, because anyone means one person out of a group. Whereas aggrieved person means that I could not go before the planning and zone or before council and file an appeal. The way we have it stated in paragraph E under section 3.
Yeah. Let me look.
So in our ordinances, we say anyone aggrieved. I want to know the distinction between those two, because.
Where was this again?
So it's in their ordinances when it comes to
No.
appeals.
This is the appeal part.
Yeah.
Right. So this is not actually in the rules of procedure itself. This is our
This
ordinances.
is under E. Is that what you said?
3.4E, I think.
Appeals of final decision of planning and zoning commission can only be brought by an aggrieved person.
Yes.
So, and you should have in the version that you received, it should say an aggrieved person as described in our village ordinances.
But-
Right now we have 13 different locations where
Yeah.
that shows up.
And we have it defined here in paragraph E, why? I mean, this is rules for us.
We can
not-
remove it.
I think we ought to.
So
Could
you
could
move to remove that section E?
I move that we remove paragraph E.
Yeah, because we've sort of been dealing with all the other ordinances that have appeals processes, and this makes it a lot simpler.
Okay. I am happy to
So I have
strike
a
that. from the
motion to
final version.
remove E. Do I have a second? I have a second. Any further discussion?
Mr. Mayor,
I'll second.
I'm not sure that it is adequately,
Oh, because it's a discussion item.
no, I'm not sure that issue is adequately described and defined in the various ordinances. There are probably 10 or 15 different ordinances on appeals.
But they all say anyone aggrieved.
Right, this has a definition.
Yeah,
I'm not sure that every ordinance does.
Oh,
But
But we could remove it from the rules of procedure and then amend our ordinances with this definition,
yeah,
correct?
I don't understand why the paragraph E is in there for our rules and regs if it pertains to the governing body.
I'm not sure. I understand why the appeal process is in there, actually.
Yeah.
But we need
Well-
how an appeal is conducted, but we don't necessarily need how we get to an
Right.
appeal.
That's what I meant.
Yeah.
I agree.
So here's what we'll do. Because I'm not even sure we should be having motions and voting on it since it's a discussion item
Okay.
and hasn't been noticed as something we're going to vote on. We will remove that if no one else has any objection from this.
And I'll discuss it with the attorneys too and see if there's a reason why we need it in that particular section. But Ken and I are already working on amending our different areas where appeals show up in our ordinances. Because we have some inconsistencies. You know, in one section, it says you have 10 days to file an appeal, and then the next you have 20 days to
I
file
don't
the
doubt that a
appeal.
bit, but I didn't understand why it was in our rules and as,
That makes sense.
yeah, that's a good point.
Well, part of it, didn't this come up couple of meetings ago or
It
something?
did, and we directed the attorneys to flesh it out a little more for us. And so I think that's where it came in, but
Okay,
yeah, we can take it out and then use it elsewhere. So at some time in the near future, you will be getting a amended ordinances on 14 different sections of village code to get all of the appeals sections all consistent.
so look forward to it.
Yes.
Does
I know
anybody
you
else have
can't
any other
wait.
questions or any comments that they want to make? Any changes that they think they'd like to see next time? So is there any reason why we need to keep the appeal hearing process as part of this?
I mean, I can talk to Randy again, but it was just, we need, the way we conduct an appeal hearing is a little bit different from the way we conduct a regular meeting.
know.
And that was why.
Okay,
Mr. Mayor, Councilors, I think the procedure is appropriate in the rules of procedure. I think Council Murray's point about is more substantive, who's an aggrieved person who has the rights under these rules, but I think the rules of procedure are an appropriate place to address how the
okay,
appeal is conducted.
all right. Okay. If no one has anything else to say, I believe we have finished the business of the council.
Future agenda items. Announcements of future agenda items.
The future agenda items, we're going to approve ordinance 24-02 on 312. Approve and adopt the rules of procedure on 312. Have a final report and presentation from the multi-use facility now known as the Corrales Community Center, Corrales Community
Center.
Committee.
Center committee.
Center, okay, center. On 312. Is there something you wanted to add? Anybody else have a burning desire to add something to the 312 meeting? Isn't there something, what else would we going to have that day?
I know I have a couple other things. I can't remember off the top of my head what they were.
Mr. Mayor,
Yes, sir.
on item number 3, final report that does not say we're gonna have to have an approval, so that doesn't necessarily have to happen that day.
They're presenting their final.
They're
Final
presenting.
report, They're just gonna present it, that'll be it.
Yeah, they're actually going to do it. They're going to be two groups. There's going to be one group that has one approach. And then there's going to be another group that doesn't agree with that approach.
But we're just gonna hear those.
And we're going to hear both approaches.
Okay,
Yeah, we didn't adopt anything from the first group that
Yeah.
came and presented to us. So this is just
That's why-
information.
That's why I was
Yes,
asking the
we
question.
took their information and it'll be used at some point in the future.
So is it both the same committee? Or
This is the second committee. This is the second committee.
You mean the two
Second
groups?
committee.
And they've split in their presentations.
Second committee.
That's my understanding.
That's why I asked the question, because it's just. a final
sir.
report.
Just a matter of interest, the final meeting of the committee is this Thursday, 9:30 here.
Is there,
The final in-person meeting is this Thursday, the 29th, and then they have 2 Zoom meetings scheduled for next week, just in case they need to do any follow-up on the report. So they may end up canceling those though, depending on how the meeting goes on Thursday.
okay,
The reason I asked, Mr. Mayor, is because I'm gonna be out of town, but I'm gonna be online.
for the 312 meeting? Okay. Okay. All right. Well, since we're through with the business, meeting is adjourned. Thank you guys for coming. It's kind of a long meeting.